The Newcomer, page 17. August 29, 1987. The Council, that's what they're calling themselves, has decided that they have the only plan to save the world. It seems that man has created the perfect disease for itself. Present in seafood and aggravated by the ingestion of water, it attacks the prostate, causing an accelerated form of lethal cancer. The Council, a group of women doctors and women scientists, isolated the cause and set about to discover a cure. They couldn't find one. Because the disease first enters the bloodstream through the ingestion of seafood, coastal areas were hit first and the hardest. Within 5 months, the entire populations of Hawaii was annihilated. By the time that the cause was pinpointed, male adolescents were already infected. Therefore, the future of the world depended upon the protection of male infants. So they rounded up the people of the world and have them isolated in prisons, colleges, and hospitals. What a time of mass hysteria. Can you fathom the results? Rachel could smell the greasy air of the restaurant where she had worked. The odor transported her to the day that she had met Troy. A man sat in her station in a booth near the window. By the time that she came over to him, she knew what he wanted. "Bring me the biggest lobster that you have," he said. Setting the gratuitous glass of water before him, the waitress apologized. "I'm sorry, but we're fresh out of lobster." "Okay," the man said. "Then bring me a bucket of steamers." Again, the waitress apologized, then suggested the fresh meat loaf. "I didn't come to Maine for meatloaf. How about a dozen oysters on the half-shell?" The waitress was embarrassed by her seafood restaurant's lack of product and relayed that to him, then said, "You're from out of town, eh?" "Whatever gave you that idea?" he asked, a tad bit disgusted as he folded the menu and handed it towards her. "Please don't leave." Rachel reached across the table to retrieve the glass of water that she had set before him. "We'll fix you something on the house," she said slowly, stroking his hand as their eye contact became fixed. The customer took a good look at his waitress. Her ample breasts strained the buttons on the tight uniform, which tugged her hips tighter than a 2-year-old clutches a blanket. Flirting wisps of auburn hair escaped the bondage of her ponytail. Her dark green eyes enslaved his soul. "Bring me the meatloaf," he said. September 3rd, 1987. What's going on out there I can only surmise. When I was first incarcerated, I underwent massive testing, including I don't know how many sperm samples. The results of these tests were never made known to me. I was given minor details as to the state of the world, as in, there are few adult males left. What males that could be rounded up are in the same position that I am in. Incarcerated is actually a rough word, as I'm confined to the infirmary of this institution. There is a garden hall in one in my room. I'm thankful that I'm able to go to the toilet alone, hence my paper supply and hiding place for journal and pens that I've acquired from the nurses. How long this luxury of privacy is allowed, I can't say. Since my journal has not been confiscated, it makes sense that I'm not being filled while I take a dump. Why is it that when we speak of the divine love between a man and woman, it reduces it to mundane descriptions and sounds contrived? Troy and Rachel, Rachel and Troy, they defined marriage, the couple made whole by their union. By the time that Troy had landed his transfer to the oil rigs of Nova Scotia, they were married, a quiet fall wedding, complete with floating leaves and lavender skies. They settled down in a small cottage in Shreveport, Maine. Because Rachel's internship and Troy's job kept them separated, their time together was precious, unhampered by the trivial discrepancies that usually cloud a couple's adjustments to a shared life. Whenever an annoyance became a burden, it was quickly discussed, then either accepted or negotiated. This was the reason why Troy was having trouble convincing himself to tell Rachel what he knew he had to tell her. He didn't want to waste their time together. Long before they were married, Rachel wasn't the only woman in town who was forward with her intentions. The list was long, and Troy believed he'd been accosted by every woman who lived in Shreveport. When Deborah Dixon, Rachel's mentor and teacher at Hodgkin's Hospital, added her name to the list, Troy knew that he had to bring up the subject. Since the news of Rachel's pregnancy hadn't curbed but accelerated the offers, he stopped coming by the hospital for their weekly lunches. Knowing that Rachel delighted in these dates, he felt obvious by his evasion and hoped that she'd open the topic for him. He was about to get his wish. Rachel had waited in the hospital canteen for over an hour. Realizing that this was yet another missed appointment, she decided to take the rest of the day off, devising an excuse when she heard her name called. "Rachel!" Deborah called from across the room. "Wait there for me." Rachel turned her gaze back to the table and sighed. She didn't want to dodge her mentor, and she didn't want to lie to her face-to-face either. "How are you feeling?" Deborah asked, placing her coffee on the table and sitting down next to Rachel. The liar took the way out. "Not well, I'm afraid. I'm going to have to miss rounds this morning." "I'm sorry to hear that, Rachel, but I do understand." She motioned towards Rachel's uneaten donuts, and Rachel nodded. Miss Dixon grabbed one and hungrily took a bite. "Are you planning on missing another meeting tonight also?" she asked between chews. Rachel dreaded that subject. Deborah was the leader of Zantoc Council, a coven of women with radical views on, among other subjects, the male species. Rachel disagreed with most of the coven's views, but felt obliged to take part. Shreveport was a small town, and Deborah was a respected leader. Being connected with Miss Dixon was one of those sure success tickets. It's a coven of women. Okay. "A new development has occurred," Miss Dixon was saying, "that makes it imperative that you attend. What's happening will affect everyone, whether they're council members or not." "What's so crucial?" Rachel asked, starting to feel genuinely nauseous. "It's far too complicated to discuss now. Be at my house at 7:30. For those who are informed of this meeting," she said, then looked around, "but choose not to attend," she had turned attention back to Rachel, "their actions will be viewed as betrayal." "Betrayal?" Rachel blurted, aggravated by Deborah's dramatic life-or-death actions. "You make it sound like there's going to be a coup or something." "Or something," Miss Dixon said, rising from her chair. "Just be there," she ordered, throwing money on the table to pay for the donuts. Rachel stared at the bills, annoyed with the person who had left them. Deborah's demand was illogical, and abiding by them would ruin her plans with Troy.